What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 41 of Breaking Bats, presented to you by Not For Long Media. I am your host, Brian O'Grady, and with me, as always, again, 2 weeks in a row now. We took a break, but as always, J.A. Justin Harris. Jay, we talked earlier on Colin's show. Now we're recording this. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I was saying before we got on here, I'm good, by the way. It's the day-night doubleheader. This is what really separates the men from the boys in terms of podcasters. This is what, really, this is a gritty. We're doing an interview after this. So yeah, I think 1/8 of our day will just be spent talking to each other on Zoom, which, I don't have a problem with that.
It's great. Yes, I would, if there's one word to describe this show, it's gritty for
Gritty.
sure. But we have to say, I don't know if we said this before. I don't think we have, but I have to tell all our listeners, we have to congratulate old JA here. We're cramming in some things a little bit because JA is starting a new job next week at good old George Washington University in DC. So we were very excited about that. JA is very excited. We were very excited for him. So congratulations. As you guys know, he's a very hard worker. And without him, we wouldn't have any of this stuff. So JA, congrats, buddy. I know I already told you that, but on here, congrats, dude. Very happy for you. And I know everybody else will be too.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Really excited to be a George Washington University colonel working downtown DC. So, yeah, it's going to be great. I wasn't expecting such kind words. I would have had a speech prepared afterwards.
I'll warn you next time, but the genuine reaction is better anyway. So once again, congrats to him. We have to root for GWU now. And with all that being said, go ahead, hit him, Jay. What do we got today?
We have a quick ad before we get to our news this week. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Som Sleep. Are you having trouble getting enough sleep at night? Because Som Sleep has you covered. The scientifically advanced Som snack includes ingredients that are naturally found in your body like GABA, magnesium, and melatonin. Sleep is the best form of recovery, and it has helped people everywhere take their game to the next level. It's simple. All you have to do is drink one serving of Som Sleep just 30 minutes before you go to bed, and your body will naturally calm itself down. Other sleep supplements leave you feeling groggy in the morning, but not Som Sleep. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to conquer your day. Go to getsom.com, click shop, and enter the code BATS, BATS, at checkout for 10% off of your entire order. All right, in the news category this week, in things that don't have to do with the World Series, we'll get to World Series talk in a minute. Albert Pujols officially signed his retirement papers. A source told MLB.com on Monday he signed all the documents. There's going to be no Pujols in 2023. He finished 2022, though, 24 bombs and 895 OPS. 703 career for his for home runs for Albert Pujols. Are you sad that we're not going to have Albert? I thought there was a chance he could come back, and I thought he would maybe get to chase Babe Ruth in the all-time record. So none of that.
Man, what a career! Congratulations to him. I'm glad he got to 700. We talked about that. I think if he was at 699, that's tough to hang up right there. It would be in my mind at least. But an unbelievable career. I think it's better to go out playing that well. He kind of finished it off and played really well when it looked like maybe that wasn't going to happen. So he turned it around and got the finish in St. Louis and had an unbelievable year and all that, the home run chase and everything. It was great. I think it's a good way to go out. I think you were seeing I love Tom Brady. I think he's still very good, but things are not going great right now for him. So maybe Pujols playing that well, you ride out in the sunset for that.
You go out on top like Seinfeld. It's not a bad idea. You don't want to limp out. You don't want your last memory of people to have of you is just like this sad, old, tired man who can't get it done anymore. So that's a great point. I was hoping to see Albert climb the home run ranks a little higher. It's cool he got to 703 though. So that's no small feat in and of itself. So it's a great end to a career for Albert Pujols. I don't think anybody thought he'd have 24 home runs this year, by the way, except maybe Greg Amsinger, who apparently is just correctly predicting everything. So shout out Greg.
All year for predictions out of Greg. Good for you.
Love him. We need to get him back on the podcast. Next up, Kansas City Royals. They have a new manager, Matt Quatraro. He was the bench coach in Tampa Bay in 2018 to 2022. Worked with Brian there in 2020. I thought this was cool. I thought it was a fun story. Brian, what do you remember about working with Matt back in 2020?
Q is awesome. He's definitely just a laid back, quiet guy who just gets his job done. Like he was great. I love talking to him. hits some great fungos. Jesus, what fungos he hits. But no, just a smart guy. Has everybody's respect, and it's just even keel. So I think he's a great fit for that team, being young and obviously great experience with the Rays. He was with the Indians before that. He's been basically somebody was going to hire him for the past like 5 years. I don't know this, but it kind of seemed like he was waiting for his perfect fit, like what he wanted to do, because he was all over the place interviewing for a long time at this point. So happy for Q, great guy. I think the Royals made a great decision, and he's going to be a phenomenal manager.
I thought this is interesting also because the Kevin Cash coaching tree, it's ever expanding. So we saw Charlie Montoyo go to Toronto for a little bit. Rocco Baldelli is in Minnesota. Derek Shelton's in Pittsburgh. What do you think it is about Kevin Cash that lends to having all of his coaches go out and be so well positioned to be managers in their own right?
I think it's a combo of the culture, like we talked about before in Tampa. Cash and Neander kind of set that, and it just rolls through. But Cash does a great job of communicating. So I think all those guys that come from Cash and the Rays understand that and understand how important that is as players. And most of these guys are, I think all of them actually are former players. So they get that too, being former players. Like all you can ask for is the truth, like the actual truth, whatever. If that's hard to hear, if it's stuff you want to hear, whatever that truth is. So they do that, and then obviously they bring some ideas with them from Tampa and kind of whatever their little secret sauce is too. But I think all of them are good people, and that goes a long way too. And they all command respect.
It's cool because you never really think about baseball coaching trees, but I mean, guys like Joe Madden's coaching tree have been really well. I'm just thinking to the NFL too, if we're going to like switch into football, like, so there's just some head coaches that just produce awesome coaching trees. So it's cool to see Kevin Cash's. He's been there for, gosh, I think it's 8 years he's been in Tampa now. So it's cool to see his kind of go out and have success in their own right.
Yeah, I think anytime it doesn't matter the sport, right? I think if you're learning from a great coach in that sport, you're gonna have at least some sort of clues on what you're doing. It doesn't mean you'll be great too, but you get an inside look at all that stuff, and you can use that on your own, or you can implement the same strategies. Those guys have definitely been doing it. As we say, they keep getting hired, right, and staying.
I love it. Shout out Coach Q. Next up in the news category, Nolan Arenado. I don't know if this is a surprise or not, but he informed the Cardinals that he intends to stay and he's not going to opt out. He's going to have the rest of his 5 years, $144 million played out in St. Louis. Did you ever think he was going to be a free agent? I think it's like 28.8 a year or something, if I did my math right. He's 32. He seemed like he had a good time. I don't know. What do you think?
It's an interesting one because the age nowadays, which is probably works against him a little bit, but I think that's starting to turn actually a little bit too. But I think he's just in the right situation. He likes St. Louis. He thinks that they're trying to win. He's coming off an MVP caliber year, so maybe he could have got more. But at the end of the day, he's set with money. That's obviously a ton of it. He's fine, and he likes where he's at. So good for him. Doesn't have to worry about it. He stays there, and probably finish his career out there. And I think it just makes it more simple. Didn't have to go in and start thinking about contracts and worry about all that stuff this offseason. He can do whatever adjustment stuff he wants to do and just know he's going to be in St. Louis and that he's a part of that team and them trying to win a World Series.
I looked it up. I saw this on Twitter earlier. I couldn't believe it. He's won 10 consecutive gold gloves at third base.
It's kind of caveat. Sorry. He's amazing. Fucking unreal over there. Don't get me wrong. But this is also this year too. The fact that Manny Machado hasn't won any of them or wasn't even one of the 3 finalists this year is fucking bonkers. And it's another story. But people say, oh, well, his the defensive run save, I think it is, whatever, like, isn't good. But that doesn't come to take account like positioning and other things too. So, Arenado's phenomenal. Can't take anything away from him, but it's a crime that Manny hasn't fucking won any of those.
Oh, dang. This is like semi-breaking news to me. I haven't really checked the gold gloves they were announced tonight. Leave it to baseball to just drop the gold gloves on the night of the World Series when probably nobody's paying attention. But I'm looking at the National League side. Shout out Trent Grisham. Gold glove.
Number 2.
So,
good for him, man.
Shout out Trent Grisham.
Love it.
All right. Next up for you guys, we have our Fudging Awesome Moment of the Week.
Fudging Awesome Moment of the Week is brought to you by our sponsor, the original Fudge Kitchen. They are shipping fudge and sweet treats all over the country. You can find them online at fudgekitchens.com. I still have a few little bits of fudge left from when I just ordered it about a week ago. It is phenomenal. I loved it. I'm definitely going to order some more here and probably, I don't know, might wait about 2 weeks before I have to stuff that down again. But it is so good. All sorts of different flavors. They have saltwater taffy and other treats too. I don't know if anybody's down to Jersey Shore anymore this year, but if you are, they have locations in Cape May, Stone Harbor, Wildwood, North Wildwood, and Ocean City. But they ship all over the country at fudgekitchens.com.
I don't know. It might be bumping down there with the Phils in the World Series. Jersey Shore could be a hot place to watch these World Series games. I don't know. Our moment of the week, it's a really cool story. I saw it in the New York Times on Sunday. It's about Yordan Alvarez's parents. So this is a story that I think originally it was big back in August, and I'll tell you why, is because when Yordan left Cuba at age 17, this is back in 2016, up until August of this year, his parents haven't been able to watch him play pro ball in person, and they sparingly watched him on TV. So there was like 2 years of immigration lawyers, and the Astros owner, Jim Crane, had to get involved and put his backing behind this. So they finally came to their first game back in August, and the New York Times story just basically covered his parents' trip there for game 2 of the World Series. They hang on every pitch. Like his mom is living and dying with every single pitch of a Yordan Alvarez at bat. They're his biggest supporter. So I thought that was a really, really cool, heartwarming baseball story. My question to you is that in terms of having your family there and your parents there to watch you play, like how many games, like what percentage of your games, obviously 2020 aside, would your parents come to?
Not a lot, man. It's not easy. Easier than Jordan's parents had it for sure. That story is phenomenal, but it's working and doing all those things. It's not easy to get the games. But anytime I came close, DC, they would take the train down. Anytime like that. I'm trying to think of where obviously my debut and some of that in Cincinnati, they were there. I haven't played in Philly, so they haven't been able to come to Philly yet. But DC, yeah, it's not easy. The minor leagues, same thing. It's random places, but they've been there. I don't know, not as often as they would like. That's for sure. But watching, of course, they have all the apps and everything you can watch with now, so that makes it a little bit easier. Got them to figure out how you can use your phone to put stuff on the TV, so they can instead of sitting at the phone like this, they can actually watch on TV.
That MLB.com subscription is coming in clutch.
Yeah.
Or MLB.TV. So to shift gears and talk a little bit about the World Series and Yordan Alvarez's Houston Astros, we are recording this before Game 3 of the World Series on Tuesday night. There was rain out, of course, on Monday that shifted the pitching matchups a little bit around. So there's some interesting storylines that came out of that. The Astros didn't touch a thing. They left the rotation completely intact. The Phillies, though, they went from having Syndergaard go game 3 and kind of like a 1/3, 2/3 split between him and the bullpen. They're going to have Ranger Suarez, who's been very dependable for them this postseason in game 3. And then Nola is back out there for game 4. Do you think this changes the balance of power in this series at all? Just having the rain out and how it shifted the pitching and even the bullpens?
It's a good question. I don't think so. I think if you ask the Phillies, well, obviously if they're starting Ranger Suarez instead of Syndergaard, that was the scenario that they preferred right there. But I think it's also they wanted to mix it up. They gave the Astros 2 righties in Nola and Wheeler, who both got hit around pretty good, even though the Phillies won the first game. So mix it up with the lefty, see if that gets them off the game and then sets it up later. But the Astros did what they wanted to do, stand pat, and they already had the day off in between, so the bullpens should be okay. But if advantage goes to anybody, I think you said it earlier, it goes to the Phillies, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Just because the fact that you have your starters set up in a more favorable way for you. The only thing is that though they're still committing to Wheeler in game 6, I believe. Game 5, I think they would go bullpen game with Syndergaard and the relief pitchers. I don't think if they're facing elimination, if they drop game 3 and game 4, game 5, winner take all or whatever, it's or not winner take all, just win or go home for the Phillies. They got to put Wheeler back out there on the bump. But the only thing with that is that Wheeler did not look good in his start. He gave up 5 innings. It was 5 runs, 3 walks. First pitches of every at bat, it felt like in the first inning were hard contact, or even just the first couple pitches of every at bat. Velocity was down. Like, how worried should we be with Zach Wheeler right now?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't ideal, but at the same time, you got to roll with them, right? They don't really have another choice. So you got to hope that he clears his mind, comes back, and at the end of the year, man, I'm sure he's tired, but who cares? He doesn't care at this point. No one cares. So they just got to go out there and do it. And that was my one question. So if the Phillies, if they win these next two games and it's game five at home, and they have a 3-1 lead, do they throw Wheeler in that game?
Ooh.
Or do you still save him for 6?
I think they would. I think they would give him a bull. I think they would do bullpen day, and I think they would put him out there for the next game, give him his extra day of rest or whatever. Just they love giving this guy extra rest. I mean, even with that long layoff between the CS and the World Series, they still started him game 2 instead of game 1. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think Thompson's got a pretty good grasp on it, but gosh, that 2 mile an hour or whatever it was drop in velocity in his fastball, it was not pretty. He was 95, 96 as opposed to 97, 98. And I mean, gosh, the Astros were very aggressive in the first pitches of these at bats. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, these games are 3 and 4 are going to be crucial, obviously. But in terms of surprises in this series, what's been the biggest surprise in games 1 and game 2 for you?
I would say the Astros offense, right? Like putting up five right away, or going up 5-zip. That first game, like, this is not looking good. But the Phillies came back, which is also a surprise because that is a big deficit right there, especially in the World Series with Justin Verlander on the mound. But I didn't expect the Astros offense to come out as aggressive and as potent as it's kind of been so far. How about you?
It's Justin Verlander continuing to be horrific in World Series games. It's death, taxes, and Justin Verlander will not pitch well in the World Series. It feels like he's now 0-6 with a 6.07 ERA. I don't know how that's possible. He's going to win the Cy Young in the American League this year. And then he goes out there and lays an egg in game 1. I mean, this is his 5th World Series. It's his 8th career World Series start too. So it's not even a small sample size, but good God, JV. Did you see the video of him flipping fans off in Philadelphia, by the way?
Yes, kind of. But I heard he was trying to give some context to it. I'm sure they were probably deserved it.
He did it while smiling. So yeah, I don't think it's.
I think it's kind of funny. They probably loved it. They probably were dying, honestly.
I saw a picture of some girl that he was flipping off. He got a picture with her like arm around, smiling, and he was like doing the flipping off in the photo. So I think it might have been like a funny in jest kind of thing, not like a FU, like a cold FU, which would just be weird because he's on the bus. It's like, why are you doing this? So that's my biggest surprise. I'm excited though. This has been a fun World Series. It's been a good back and forth. A lot of offense, which I like. It's not great if you like pitching duels, but I mean, who likes pitching duels anyway? That's all I had. I just want to do the top 5 and we can get out of here.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So this week's top 5, we talked about it last week. We teased it. It's going to be the top 5 most unlikely postseason heroes. So you can expect a lot of Orioles and Nationals in mine. Shout out. My number 5 is Steve Pearce, former Oriole, 2018 World Series for the Red Sox. He gets traded to the Red Sox halfway through that year. In the World Series, he hit 3 home runs, including 2 in Game 5, and took home the World Series MVP. So shout out Steve Pearce. Number 4, it's going to be Edgar Renteria, 2010 World Series, 412 in that series with 6 RBIs, and he was the MVP of that series. Number 3 is going to be Travis Ishikawa. So back-to-back Giants. 2014 NLCS was insane. Game-winning RBI in Game 1. Game 5 walk-off with a 3-run homer. Sends the Giants to the World Series that year. He batted .385 in the NLCS. So shout out Travis Ishikawa. Number 2 is going to be a national. It's going to be Howie Kendrick. His 2019 postseason is the stuff of legend. The NLDS against LA, a 10th inning grand slam to give the Nationals the win. NLCS MVP. And then in the World Series, Game 7, we've talked about it last week. He had the go-ahead 2-run home run off the foul pole. I love Howie Kendrick so much. And then my number 1 pick, it's going to be Delman Young, his double in Game 2 of the ALDS for the Baltimore Orioles against the Tigers. I mean, I was at that game, so I'm a little bit biased, but I mean, his career at that point, he went from like first overall pick and he bounced around a little bit. And then to have that big pick or a big hit is just a cult hero forever in Baltimore after that. So Delman Young, number 1.
I like that list, and I'm going to steal one because I just have to because I loved it so much. But I'll put him at 5 for it. Howie Kendrick, man, that postseason run was just I was loving watching that. So I gotta go with him at number 5. Number 4 is going to be Chris Colabello from the Blue Jays. He was an offseason waiver claim that year, and he ended up hitting 321 with a 520 slug in 101 games for Toronto that year, and was crucial for their playoff role or playoff run, excuse me. And then number 3 is going to be Craig Counsell, Brewers manager, back with the D-backs. And Luis Gonzalez had the Game 7 walk-off off Mariano Rivera that year. But Counsell homered in Game 1 to kind of set the tone, and he ended up he was the NLCS MVP, and that just kind of set the tone for the rest of that series. Number 2, I don't really know why, but I always liked Edgar Renteria. Can't really tell you why. I think it's because he was pretty good in whatever video games I was playing back then. I had absolutely no affiliation with him, but he's number 2 for the Giants. Apparently, he gave a big-time speech to the Giants that year and ended up with hitting 412 with 6 runs and 6 RBIs in the World Series with the game-winning homer in Game 5 and was the MVP. So he is number 2. And then number 1, I had to go with my guy, Mike Brissell from the 2020 Rays. His story's great. I hope we get him on here this offseason. Undrafted out of college, worked his way up there, and just that year played a great role with the Rays. But that season in Yankee Stadium with 2 outs in the 9th, Aroldis Chapman threw a ball at his face that barely missed it, and he ended up striking out to end the game. And there was a little kerfuffle after that. The bench is cleared as Chapman kind of stared him down and walked towards him. Fast forward to the AL Division Series in San Diego that year, 2020. He put together one of the best at-bats I have ever seen, and I was watching it live, which ended, I forget how many pitches it was. It had to be at least 10, 12. Ended with a homer off Chapman that gave us the win and advanced us to the next round, and was a sweet, sweet payback for what happened earlier in the year. So he had to be number 1.
I love that list, man. Yeah, I was a big Edgar Renteria fan too, at like MVP baseball, like 2005. Yeah.
I don't know why, but I always was. No clue.
Yeah, he bounced around a little bit. I love that cool batting stance with the bat way up here. Yeah. So yeah, I was big Renteria guy too.
Edgar Renteria.
Yeah,
big fan. Hope you come on the pod.
Yeah, I was like, I wonder what he's doing nowadays. All right. We have 2 last quick things before we get to our interview this week. We wanted to give a shout out to friend of the podcast, Actions Over Words. It's an apparel brand with the mission of encouraging people to use their actions instead of their words. They're founded in Cape May, New Jersey by Alec Levin. They donate $5 of every sale to charities around the world. So check them out at actionsoverwordsapparel.com and use the promo code N4L for 10% off of your entire order. And last but not least, be sure to check out our Not For Long Media family of podcasts. Tons of great content for you to check out. The Colin Thompson Show, which Brian and I were on earlier today. We have other great Not For Long Media podcasts that you should check out as well. 2 Girls, 1 League, and Odd G's with Harry Mays and Jason Martinez. Interview for this week. We're about to tape it as soon as we get done with this. It's going to be a very cool Padres-themed interview.
Yeah, we got reliever for the Padres, Steven Wilson. My teammate last year, he was in AAA. Didn't, for some reason, never got called up last year. I thought there was a few times he probably deserved it, but nonetheless, he didn't, and was protected this offseason, I believe, put on the 40-man, and made the team out of spring and had a pretty good year. So awesome dude. Got a really good story, good backstory there too that we'll touch on. Was an Uber driver and some other things I know that you were having fun looking up. But yeah, man, great guy. Can't wait to talk about him. To talk to him. Talk about him.
Should be a lot of fun.
With all that being said, we'll set our interview with Steven Wilson from the Padres. And joining us today on Breaking Bats is Padres reliever Steven Wilson, my former teammate in El Paso. Willie, thanks for coming on, man. Good to see you. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you as well. I'm doing well. Just got back home for the off season and just kind of getting settled in and finally unpacked and getting back into the gym these last couple days.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. What a season for you and for the team. Excited to hear about it and talk about it. But I saw you got added in the offseason. I was telling JA when we were recording the intro to this right before we hopped in here. You didn't get called up the year I played with you at all. And I thought there were a few times you probably deserved for that to happen. So when when I saw you got added this offseason and then broke with the team out of spring training, I thought that was just really cool. I was pumped for you because you do have a great backstory, which we're going to get to too. But when they told you that you made the team in spring, how cool was that?
It was amazing, man. It was honestly hard to like keep the emotions down. I kind of let it out a little bit. It's been a crazy journey, so it was it was awesome. Like I didn't expect that going into spring training. I knew that there was probably one spot available to take. Um, and I put together 6 good outings and things kind of fell that way and yeah, it was a pretty cool moment.
What they do? They call you in the office, or they tell you at the game?
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy because spring training was done and we had that like one off day and we were playing Arizona, so we were still there in Peoria. And we went in to throw. I like went through my whole like warm up routine in the gym and nobody there was kind of a few of us were on the fence and we're sitting there waiting to hear who the last guys were that were going to make the team. And I was about to leave to go outside and throw and Ben Fritz, our bullpen coach, called me in and he was like, "Hey, we need to talk to you real quick, Willie." And so they brought me in and it was Preller and Stein and Fritz and Ruben and then Bomel. And yeah, it was pretty surreal. I was like, okay, this is going one of two ways. I went in with no expectations, but because there were some other good pitchers that could have made it too out of camp. And so I was like, all right, it's going one of two ways. Let's see what they got to say. And thankfully I ended up breaking with the team and it was a pretty cool moment, especially having a manager like Bob Melvin tell you that you're breaking with the team.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, those nerves going into that room, you're like, oh shit. Well, here it is. Let's find out.
Yeah.
Let's find out which one. This is
Yeah.
but man, that had to be so cool to hear those words. And then what was it like? Now, this is one thing I have not gotten to experience that hopefully will is opening day. I haven't been there for opening day. How cool was opening day?
It was awesome. I mean, we opened up in Arizona and they actually had a pretty good crowd that day. And I'm trying to remember if they called out our names on opening day. It might have just been the starters. It might have been everybody. I don't honestly remember. It was first game and the butterflies were going and adrenaline was pumping all day. So um, it was cool, man. Just the atmosphere and just being there, like putting on the San Diego Padres uniform for the first time. I mean, you wear the spring training one, but the ones in season are always different. So it was a pretty surreal moment, and I had family and friends. The guy whose bachelor party I'm going to next week, I'm his best man. He was there, and so college teammates, high school teammates, whole family. It was pretty surreal. And then in San Diego it was amazing. I think we were sold out, and the place was nuts. And they announce you, and yeah, it was pretty special.
That's awesome. Yeah, San Diego's they love it, man. It's phenomenal. But did you? So when did you debut officially? Did you pitch in Arizona?
Yeah, I pitched the third game of the season. It was actually tied 2-2, and I think I threw the sixth inning. And the second pitch fly out, and then I went punch out, and then I had another punch out on a check swing, but it got called a ball. And ended up walking that guy and got a ground out next. So yeah, the third game of the season.
What was that like jogging in for that first inning?
It was wild. I will say it like wasn't my highest adrenaline of the year. I honestly expected like more adrenaline. But it was, I mean, it was up there. And walking in, I was like, damn, like tie game, I held it right there, like did my job. And so it was pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's I can't imagine like going back to those emotions. It's crazy, but I feel like pitching is like different than hitting for some reason. I don't know. Like you're up there, everybody's watching everything you're doing because nothing's starting until you start to do something. Like it's just a different animal. And I'd be afraid I like tripped
Yeah.
or something like that. But that's awesome, dude. Love it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild as a pitcher. I mean, they say it's like the loneliest place in sports on that mound.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're out there, all the eyes are on you. Like as a hitter, you get to go up to bat and like 3-4 times a game, and you can make, like, even if you have a bad offensive game, you can still like have a great defensive game, and like it's still a productive game. But as a pitcher, like it's either you do it or you don't. And so it was crazy, but it was a blast.
That's awesome. Let's JA, let's get it going, man. Hit them with the old school questions.
No, I mean, you said it yourself. I mean, you've had a crazy journey to get to where you are at this point, but I wanted to take it back because I heard a really, really cool story back on Father's Day. I think it was your dad was talking about the time he umpired your high school game at Coors Field, like had
Yeah.
like called in emergency umpire situation. What was that like, having your dad be your umpire?
Yeah, that was it happened a couple times throughout like little league and in middle school. Like the umpires didn't show up, and my dad was a professional umpire for a while. He went to the school down in Florida and umpired for a couple seasons, and he's done college ball forever. So we showed up that day for the high school game, and the umpires weren't there. I guess somebody had told them a different time, like an hour later or something. And so my dad pulled up, and they were like, "Hey, does your dad have his gear? Can he do the game?" And so I called him, and he had just gotten into the stadium, and I was like, "Hey, like, do you have your umpire gear with you?" And thankfully, he had it in the back of his truck, and he ran back to his car and like got suited up and came out. So our game was a little bit delayed, but yeah, and I was starting that game too, so I threw the first 2 innings, and he's not that dad that's going to give me the strikes off the plate. And I mean, it was like a professional zone in high school. He wasn't giving me anything because he's just not like that. He was always hard on me growing up, and like he's like, no, you gotta fill up the zone. I'm not giving you anything. So it was cool. We ended up walking off that game, so pretty special moment senior year high school, and yeah, it was fun.
That's so great. Yeah, like, how much did you learn about the game growing up with your dad, who obviously knew the rule book kind of inside and out?
Yeah, it was always kind of fun getting that perspective, like from the umpiring side, because I would always go to the games. That's kind of how I fell in love with the game. He would umpire all summer, and me and my brother would just go to the games with him, and we would like chase foul balls, and they would pay us to chase the foul balls. So it was kind of cool. And so I always got that perspective. I would hear him and his umpire buddies like talking about the game and the players, and so I always kind of knew, like, don't disrespect the umpires, especially early on. Like a lot of the times, I mean, I umpired games when I was in high school. Like I did the little league thing, and guys are out there trying to make money, and they're trying to do their thing, and they're not getting paid a lot, but it's so I learned how to respect the umpires. I kind of know which lines you can and can't cross, so that was always good. But yeah, definitely just being around him and learning the game. I mean, he knew it inside and out, being at the professional level. So he definitely taught me a lot about baseball, and that's probably where I got like the foundation of my baseball. I guess as a whole, baseball as a whole, that's where the foundation was set.
No doubt. So you were drafted out of high school, but chose not to sign, and you decided to go to Santa Clara University to play college ball. What was the decision-making process for you like at that point?
Yeah, it was honestly like I wasn't expecting anything in the draft. I had talked to a handful of teams, but nobody was like, "Hey, we're thinking about taking you here." And so I was working my summer job at like an outdoor pool, and I got a call from, it was actually the Phillies. So like 10 years later, it's kind of full circle. Um, and he was like, "Hey, we're thinking about taking you next round." And so we turned on the like live stream on somebody's phone at work, and like 2 minutes later, I got selected. So it's kind of crazy. And yeah, they didn't end up, because I was a 35th rounder, so they kind of signed the first round and then on down. So I was pretty late, and it was actually the deadline day. I think it was like July 12th or something, July 13th, and I had to sign by midnight. Well, I was on a family vacation in San Diego, so they actually flew out to San Diego and met us at our hotel, and they kind of gave me the offer at like 8 o'clock at night. And so I had 4 hours. I was 17. My mom would have had to sign my contract. And so I had 4 hours to decide if I wanted to go to college or if I wanted to play pro ball. And I had just finished my orientation at Santa Clara. We drove down to San Diego. So it was like just such a whirlwind. I'm 17 years old. I mean, there was a good amount of money in front of me. And I ultimately decided to go to Santa Clara, but it was a crazy 4 hours of life.
Dang. Yeah, well, we've
Yeah.
talked all about the college baseball experience, and Brian's is obviously a little bit different. I don't think, Brian, you weren't drafted at high school, were you?
No, I stunk. I was not good in high school. I was a very good athlete and I was very talented. I had no idea what I was actually doing in baseball. I was just kind of a little more gifted than most other people.
But
Not the
to go
fun.
for so you're at Santa Clara. You're the Saturday starter, right, for 1 year?
Yeah, I was like bounced between Friday and Saturday, me and Mitch White.
That's prime time. I mean, that's really cool. But then the next year, can you talk about what the Tommy John, like the experience, the leading up to that, like what all kind of happened at that point?
Yeah, so my elbow was torn for like 2 years. I tore it my redshirt sophomore year, and then I kind of just pitched through it. It wasn't a big tear at the beginning, but over the 2 years, it slowly just got worse and worse. And so, yeah, I was going into my fifth year. It was January, and I was like throwing a flat ground, and I just felt it go like completely. I couldn't. I used to go over the head out of the windup, and I couldn't lift my arm up over my head. It wasn't good. So I ended up getting surgery a week before the season started, my fifth year of college, and so I had my degree, and yeah, I thought at that point I was kind of up in the air. I was like, I've got my degree from a pretty good school. Do I start working or do I try to go to grad school and come back for a sixth year? Because I had redshirted my freshman year, medical redshirt as well. So at that point, it was two medical red shirts, and I was kind of up in the air. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to keep playing or just call it quits. And so that was kind of where I was at come the surgery day.
I mean, that has to be a difficult time in your life. The 2018 draft rolls around, though. You had a great sixth year, though. You decided to come back. But as a sixth-year senior going into that 2018 draft, can you explain kind of how that ultimately affected what you were signed for?
Yeah, I mean, I was signed for well under slot. I signed for $5,000 in the eighth round. I think slot was like 180 something, 182. I think the team saved like $176,000 that I think ended up going to our second rounder. He signed for pretty high over slot. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like, you don't really have any options. You could try to go play indie ball, but like when you get signed out of indie ball, there's usually no money there either. So money wise, I wasn't really concerned about that. I knew what it was going into the season, and I was kind of more shooting for like a round, like because I mean it happens in baseball. If they give you a lot of money, you get a little bit more chances than other people that don't. And then if you're like a higher round guy, you typically get a few more chances than anybody that's maybe like a 30th round pick or nowadays down to 20 rounds. So we were shooting for just as high of a round as we could get. We knew we were going to get about $5,000, and it was what it was. So I just kind of wanted to have the opportunity to play professional baseball. So I wasn't too caught up in the money at that point.
What pick were you in the eighth round? We got to figure this. I was an eighth rounder too.
I
We weren't
was,
the same exact pick.
I think I was 231.
I think I was 232. I swear to God, I'm not sure. Jay, look this up.
Oh,
That's pretty
I'm on
funny.
it.
So the fun part was our teammate in El Paso, or actually, I don't think you ever played with him, Trevor McGill. His brother, I was his teammate in 19. That's right. And then he was with a different team. His brother was the pick after me, and that's Tyler McGill, who's with the Mets now.
That's funny.
But somehow he was a senior, and he somehow ended up with 50,000. So I don't know what went wrong with me.
What do you got, Jay?
I looked it up. So, Steven, you were the seventh pick in the eighth round. So that's 231 overall. And Brian, you were the 20th pick in the eighth round. That was 245.
Damn it.
Close.
I got.
That's okay. You weren't
to,
a sixth year senior, so
no,
or were you?
I was a senior, not a sixth year, but
Okay.
I did get. I got 10,000 instead of 5,000.
Oh,
so.
you doubled me. Damn.
But that I do have. I had a guy that I played with who I love, but he didn't play very well, and he was a redshirt junior and older than me, and he got like 100.
Yeah, it's crazy. It makes no sense in my opinion, but it is what it is.
It's different now. Well,
Yeah.
he technically could have gone back to school. So
yeah, and that's the big thing. I mean, I think our what round did he get drafted in? Why am I blanking on his name? From Arkansas, the relief or starting pitcher and relief pitcher.
Cops. Was it Cops?
Cops, Kevin Cops. Yeah, I was blanking on his name. He's the best, by the way. Love that guy. But yeah, so he was like same boat as me. He was like technically a fifth year, but because of COVID and everything, he had like a redshirt year and then the COVID year. He was actually older than me when I got drafted, and he got like obviously not senior sign money because he did still have the option of going back to school. So it's literally just that leverage of 1 year of school that changes that for guys.
Dang.
It's kind of crazy.
It's crazy.
It all worked out in the end, so that's all that really matters.
That's right.
Yeah. Kevin Kopps was the 99th overall pick he's a third round guy.
Yeah.
So, shout out Kevin Kopps. Your best season though in 2019 your best season in the minors was 2019. Then the COVID season hit in 20. Like, were you like, what were you doing to try to stay ready during that time? And did that timing, like, was that a hard thing to stop playing baseball right as soon as you're finding your groove there?
Yeah, I was pretty bummed about the COVID year because I came in. It was my first big league camp. I came in. I had two really good outings right away, and then I actually it kind of helped me because I had a little bit of a lower back injury, so I wasn't going to be pitching in spring training anymore. And then COVID shut everything down. I went back home and rehabbed for like a month or so, and I was back throwing and pitching. And yeah, I was basically there was a gym nearby, and we could kind of go and there was like groups of 2 or 3 guys that would go lift at a time. And yeah, so I would just lift and throw, and we were able to get outside to a high school field and throw some live ABs as it got closer to maybe coming back. So I started throwing live ABs, and then everybody came back, and I ended up going to the alternate site in like the middle of August, and threw for a month there. So it was definitely not ideal, but I still got some work in. It's just hard when you're not playing games. Like you can't really simulate a game when I literally threw against, I think a 13-year-old. He was like a freshman in high school. And I was up there throwing 95. And I was like, dude, good for you for even being in the box. But like, it's not really going to get you ready for what you're going to see when you're playing professional baseball.
That's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
you sound like you have a pretty good outlook on all this stuff, though. But was it hard to, like, how do you kind of stay positive through the tough times, whether it's the Tommy John or the COVID year or even the lockout? Like, how do you stay positive through all that?
Yeah, for me, I honestly never really thought like I never had like a mental skills coach or anything. I mean, you learn some stuff through your other coaches, but never one specifically. And to me, I've said it a lot in interviews and on other stuff. I've always just seen things very like black and white. So for me, it was like, okay, if I want to keep playing baseball, I got to go to grad school, and like if I want to get drafted. And so to me, it was like a lot of it was like, what do I want to do? And I wanted to play professional baseball. So in order to do that, I needed to do X, Y, and Z. And so I kind of just focused on that. Honestly, like when I got Tommy John, it was kind of a reset for me. I had a full year to get in shape. I had gotten a little heavy in college. I was like 240. So I dropped 25 pounds. I got down to 215, started moving better, stopped being a meathead in the weight room so much. And like, I was like, oh, your hips don't actually work all that well. Let's work on that. And so that's kind of what the TJ did is it let me reset and let me like kind of get my body where it needed to be so that I could be successful on the field. And honestly, like the year mental break from baseball was pretty good for me. So I think that's kind of how I stayed positive. I was just like, okay, if I want to play pro ball, here's what I got to do. And when you're working hard, and thankfully I had a good group of guys at college around me and all summer rehabbing. And so honestly, that was one of the best summers of my life. Like I wasn't playing ball. I was just getting myself right and like getting ready for what was to come. So yeah, I would say that is kind of how I kept it. I just kept working. Honestly, that's how I kept in a good mindset.
I like that, dude. Yeah, always staying active, always keeping the mind working. So I read, obviously, Brian and I talked about this before you got on. You obviously, during the lockout, you had an interesting job, a side hustle you picked up to make extra money. You were an Uber driver. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like?
Yeah, it was. I actually did that I did it a couple years before too, and then picked it back up in the lockout. I was like, I didn't want to tap into savings or anything, so I was like, you know what? I don't have a paycheck. I kind of planned my off season to be ready to go back to spring training and start getting some money again. And obviously that didn't happen. So I was like, I'll start Ubering again. And yeah, I mean, it was honestly a great job. Like you kind of work when you want to work, other than you're putting miles on your car, like, and you get most of the people that you drive are good, no problems. But you get the really drunk guy here and there, or somebody that, I mean, you get a lot of people that just don't want to talk to you. They're just eyes in the phone the whole time, which is fine with me. So overall, it was good. I mean, it's like the one thing we can do with our schedules that's like, okay, you can work when you want. You don't really have a boss telling you what to do. And so it's pretty flexible and it's pretty good money. So it got the job done. I enjoyed it.
I saw your Uber rating. You're almost a perfect 5, 4.98. Does that still bother you to this day? The 3-4 stars?
No, I'm always just curious. Like if there was a ride where I was like I ran over a curve or like went the wrong way or something, I was like, okay, I would understand that. But I honestly don't remember one. So I'm always just curious, like, what was the one ride? Like, I don't lose sleep or anything, but it was probably one or two rides over the course of the two different times I drove Uber. And so, yeah, I'd be curious to know which one that was, but obviously I'll never know that.
He's on the mound, JA, like, God, what was that fucking ride in Uber? Fucking gave me that 4 stars. Time.
I wish he would reach out now.
Love it.
I need to have a conversation with that guy.
I like that though. Were you the Uber driver that was like, were you the chatty Uber driver? Were you, the respectful of people's time and don't want to talk to them? Like what was the conversation? Because I think there's even an option now where you can have like a silent ride too, right?
Yeah, I think you can click a button and it's like, I don't want to talk. And like it notifies the driver. I don't know if that was a thing when I drove because I never saw a notification. If it was, I missed it and people probably hated me if I said hi. But no, it was, I mean, I would usually just like ask them how their day was going. Like, hey, how's it going? How's your day? And then by then you could usually get a good feel if they wanted to talk to you or not. And so I kind of left it up to them. I wasn't the one. I mean, you get those Uber drivers that no matter what, they're going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I was not that guy. Or the ones that won't talk at all. So I was like a happy medium. Like I would talk if you wanted to. And if not, I'm cool being silent. I would just turn the music up a little bit in that case.
When you look back at that time at your life, though, to go from Uber driver, then like 3 months later, like we talked about earlier, to make the Padres opening day roster, like how do you remember all of that?
It honestly just happened so quick. Like I remember I was working out at the facility, a couple big league guys there, and we were all just talking like, yo, when's this going to happen? And I work out with Taylor Rogers in the off season, and he was in on all those meetings. So he was kind of like updating me, and it sounded like things were going terrible. And then out of nowhere, they're like, okay, report to spring training tomorrow. And I was like, what the hell? All right. I mean, I had been throwing lives and like the group we had was good. And so I felt ready, but it was kind of crazy. It like all went through on Friday and I took a flight to Arizona Saturday morning. So I packed up at that one night and I was in Arizona and playing catch the next day. So it was pretty crazy. And then, yeah, making the team a month after that, or 3 weeks, whatever it was, I mean, it was all kind of a blur. Like I think I had 6 outings in spring training, but I don't really remember specifically any of them. It was just like it was so long ago now. And like everything was just a blur at that time. You went from, oh, there's not going to be a season to, okay, we're having one to, okay, you made the team. And I was like, oh shit, like that was a crazy month.
No doubt. And obviously you made the team and you pitched incredibly to start the year and people were calling you the best kept secret on the Padres bullpen. Like what had to go right and what did you have to do to have that kind of success like you had last year?
Honestly, like it was just, I mean, I just had been throwing how I was the past few years. Like I just kept everything rolling from the years before. And it was, I mean, you're going to hit ebbs and flows. Like you're going to have a good month and then a bad month. And like, that's just kind of how baseball goes. And I mean, you get the Hall of Famers that are just flatline the whole time. And so you try to stay as close to consistent as you can, but everybody's going to have ups and downs. And early in the season, I was hot. I was hitting spots. All my pitches were working. And yeah, it was, I mean, Bomel trusted me early on. And so I was in some high leverage roles in the first month. And so it was pretty wild, but yeah, I mean, that doesn't last forever. So got smacked in the face a little bit month 2. So, but that's all part of it. Like you're not going to get better if you're not learning from those things. So it's all part of it.
I got a few quick ones, and then we'll let JA finish it out here. But
Okay.
what was first one? What was your favorite moment for you personally this season? What you pitching or the team, whatever.
Yeah, I would say two of them. First one would be like the first save I had, because I was going through it at that time. Like I had given up 4 in Atlanta, I think like a week before that, and like I was not pitching well. I wasn't commanding much, and we were kind of working on a couple things. We were tinkering with things at that point, and then so I go in for my first save because I think Rogers had gone 3 straight or 2 straight, and it's against Miami. And first pitch of the inning, like off the end of the bat, fly ball to right, and we had a 1-run lead, so there was no wiggle room. And I was like, okay, got the first one out of the way, and I look back and we're in no doubles, and it like drops in, and I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And so I think I ended up walking one, but it was second and third, 2 outs, 3-2 count, and I ended up getting a fly ball to end it. And it was like I got through it, and I kind of turned a corner there. I think I might have had one other not so great outing after that, but just like sometimes you need one of those outings, like it's a battle, but you got through it to get you back on the right track. So that one was good. And then I think my other one was my first start. I got the opener against the Dodgers. I had thrown the last inning the night before. I threw the ninth at home, and then they told me at like 11 a.m. the next day, they're like, "Hey, you're opening tonight. You got one." I was like, "All right." And so it was pretty, like I hadn't started since college in 2018, like halfway through the season, because I was limited on innings. So I went to the bullpen the second half, and so I didn't even know what to do. I'm like, so what time should I be going out? Like, what time? When's the anthem? How long am I going to have to warm up? And so just trying to figure all that out. And it ended up going well. It was 1-2-3 with 2 punch outs. So, and it was kind of electric. So yeah, that like timing thing. I went straight to the bullpen. So I didn't play catch before the game like I usually do. I'm like, you know what? I threw last night. I know I'm going to be a little soggy. Like, well, I'll just go straight to the pen and just act like I'm coming out of the bullpen. And so I did. And they were like, okay, I think it was a 6:40 game. So they're like, all right, at 6:38, they usually like turn the lights off and play the video. And it's like 1 minute. And then you like start warming up. The team comes out, and it's a minute till game. So I'm in the bullpen. We did the anthem. I start warming up. I'm throwing, and I look up at the clock, and it's 6:38. I was like, I only got like 1 or 2 pitches left, and the lights hadn't gone out yet. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. So I threw a couple more, and I'm like, honestly, like I'm ready. Like I'm just gonna start going out there. And they hadn't started playing the hype video or anything. And so I start walking out, and I was like, you know what? I'll walk until all the lights go out and stuff, and then I'll jog in like I normally do. Well, I got like halfway through the outfield, and then the lights went out, and I was like, you know what? I've already walked this far. Like I'm gonna walk the rest of the way. And honestly, like the slow walk and the lights going crazy and everything, like my adrenaline was just getting like higher and higher the closer I got to the mound. So it was pretty fun. And then you open up the game striking out Mookie, and it was like just there was just I don't even know what was going on. But my adrenaline was so high, it was crazy. That was like one of the 2 highest adrenalines of the year was my first start. So that one was, I liked that one. That was a special one.
That was, you led me perfect into the second one. I was going to say, what was it like pitching against the Dodgers?
Dude, honestly, like I feel like I threw pretty well. I don't know all the numbers against them, but I threw well against them this year, and which was cool. I had honestly, like in high A in 2019, the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes were like the best team in the league, and everybody was like, there was just you get that different vibe in the locker room, and I kind of got caught up in that. And like my first outing against them, gave up 2 runs, and like after that, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, it's just another team. Like, I always tell myself, like, hitters suck. I'm like, these guys suck just as much as all the other hitters. So I'm like, just get after them. And ever since then, I've never really had like there's people that get caught up in who they're playing. And I'm like, you know what? Like, yeah, it's the Dodgers, but I'm going to go out there and shove. And so that was like a big turning point for me as a pitcher, and for me, like just with them. Obviously, like the San Diego Dodgers thing has kind of blown up over the last couple of years. And so I just, you know what? It's just another hitter and another team. Like, sure, are they really good? Do they win a lot of games? Yes. They have a lot of good players. Yes. But at the end of the day, I think I can strike each and every one of them out. So that's kind of how I go into it.
That atmosphere is special, though. The San Diego
Yeah.
Dodgers was.
Oh, those games were a blast. Like, I mean, it's a sellout every time, and both stadiums rocking. And I mean, I actually like it when it's like that because you can't really hear anybody. You're out on the mountain. It's just like all one noise. The worst is like going to like when we were in Cincinnati early on and there's 500 people in the stadium, you can hear what everybody's saying. And like
Cincinnati's catching strays.
no, I mean that's just I don't know what's all going on. It was freezing cold, by the way. So I personally, as a fan, probably wouldn't have been there either. But like you get those games where there's not a lot of people in the stands, and it's like you actually hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
But then you get the games where it's like you got 45,000 people and you can't hear your catcher. So it's like I personally like when there's a lot of white noise, but you get used to both sides.
No, you're right, dude. In Japan, they do it like when the home team is hitting, they're playing their music and it's all loud and crazy and stuff. But when the visiting team is hitting, you can hear a fucking pin drop. Unless your section of fans are there. So like when we would go to Sapporo, the fighters, like where Otani and Darvish played, it's farther
Yeah.
away. So none of our fans would really be there. So we'd be
Okay.
hitting like opening series of the year. I'm up there hitting and I'm like, I could fuck like it's silent. I'm like, this is like freaking me out. What is going on? Like nothing. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Last one for me, and then JA finish it off. Did you notice anything different, or what are the differences between AAA and the MLB for you?
Yeah, it's I've been talking a lot about like a lot of people ask me this, and it's honestly it's a big jump. I don't know, I like baseball wise, yes, it's a big jump. Like these are the best players in the world, and so that was a big jump, just the baseball. But I think the biggest thing for me was like the travel and just like all the eyes on you at all times. Like whatever, like in AAA, if you have a bad outing, nobody knows and nobody cares. In the big leagues, you have a bad outing, you come back and your Twitter's blowing up, and like it's like people care, and so that part's different. And then yeah, I think the biggest thing for me this year that I struggled with was like the travel and all the time zone changes, and like because in El Paso at most we changed an hour, so it like really wasn't that. And you fly once a week, so it's really not that bad. And but then you get to the big leagues, and sometimes you're on a flight every 3 days for 12 days, so you got 5 flights in 12 days, like or whatever it is, and you're going from the West Coast, and then you're in the East Coast, and then you're back to the West Coast for 6 games, and then you're back to the East Coast. So it was like trying to find that balance, and like just trying to like figure out my sleep schedule on those times. I mean, it was all out of whack, and like just trying to get used to that. I think that was a big hurdle for me. After the first month, like my body just felt worn down. Like I was not used to it, and I was starting to adapt, and like kind of hit a lull there. And that was one thing. Like Craig Stammen told me all year, he was like, "I'm gonna tell you right now, man. Like the first year is gonna be your hardest year." He was like, just getting used to everything, and like you never know what's going on. You don't know how the trips work. You don't know how anything. Like you don't know how playoffs work this year. And so like he was like, you'll be used to it by next year. But like he told me from the beginning, he's like, this year is going to be hard. Like just get ready for it. And I mean, he was right. Like it's a lot of adjustment. And so, but yeah, the travel and stuff, that was probably the biggest adjustment for me, and the length of the season. It's another month longer than the minor league season. So that'll get you.
Absolutely. So I just had a couple quick rapid fire questions for you. So you
right.
played college baseball in the West Coast Conference. What were some of the prettiest campuses and schools you have ever played at?
Santa Clara's up there, beautiful campus. Pepperdine, obviously, their baseball, like in Malibu, baseball field looks out to the ocean, and like Pepperdine's beautiful. What are some other ones? BYU, beautiful field. Great place to play. Loved that. Gonzaga was cool. They probably had the best surface. So yeah, West Coast Conference schools, I would say those are the top ones in terms of like, I honestly didn't venture on the campuses a whole lot. Oh, University of San Diego, they got a beautiful campus too, but I didn't like them. That was USD. I'm not a fan of them. No, I'm in San Diego, so full circle.
Sticking in the college realm, so you have degrees in economics and business analytics. What does a post-playing career look like for you, do you think?
If I learned anything in grad school, it's that I don't want to work outside of baseball. So I had to do some like marketing and finance data projects, and I was like, this sucks. I have zero interest in this. And so, but then I did a few projects with baseball data, and I was like, I dove in. I'm on my computer all day. Like I was actually so. I would like to coach. I think being able to have the playing experience along with like the data background and like the analytics side, I feel like I could find a good like niche to get into there. And then other than that, maybe like a front office job. I think I want to stay on the player side of things, but I'm not opposed to working in a front office and kind of seeing the business side of baseball.
That would be incredible. You crushed that. What is your walkout song, and what is the reason why you picked it?
It is "Heavy as the Head" by Zach Brown. And honestly, like his new album came out. I'm trying to remember. I think it was like 2019 or 2018, and that song was on. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like this song, and I was like, I'm in pro ball now. Like, I got to pick something other than my college walkout. And so it just kind of got me fired up. Like, it's not a country song at all. It's more of like metal and like. And then after I had it for a walkout song, they had a Bose commercial, I think, with TJ Watt, and it was that song in the Bose commercial. And I was like, all right, that's kind of sweet. Like, I'm going to stick with that. So I've actually had that one since 2019. There's a lot of ones that I want to do, but they don't have clean versions. So I just stick to "Heavy as the Head."
What's a sample? What's another one you were thinking of?
The one I actually did it in the Dominican because you could do whatever song you want, explicit or not. I did "On Top" by Wiz Khalifa. So yeah, it was that one gets me fired up too. So in the Dominican, I loved it. They play it so loud down there too. It's the best.
I love how they just don't care about the curse words in it. They're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean most of the people don't really speak English, so it was like they don't really know what it's saying, to be honest. But
Good point.
yeah, but I would imagine, and I don't speak Spanish, so all the Spanish walkout songs probably could have been cussing too, and I don't know if they are or not. I would imagine those that they can there too. So,
Oh yeah, down in the Padres bullpen, who are some of the funniest people down there?
oh man, we got a good group of guys. Pierce Johnson is hilarious. He's always got jokes for everybody. Um, who else is funny down there? Garcia. I love Garcia. He just has like this like funny like presence and aura about him, and he's always in like a good mood. So Garcia's pretty funny. Timmy's hilarious too. Tim is one of my favorite guys down there. He's just like the most real person you'll ever meet. Like there's no BS with Tim. It's just Tim. So he cracks me up too. But yeah, honestly, the whole bullpen is just full of great dudes.
It's the best. All right, I just have one last question for you. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received. That's a great question. I have gotten a lot of advice. I got to think about this one. Best piece of advice. I don't know. I'm blanking right now. There's so many good ones, but
Yeah, life or baseball?
in life or baseball. Shoot, that's. Let me think.
That's what happens when you
I
get
used
smart guys on here.
Yeah, I used to have. There's like so many things going on. I used to have a list of them in my phone. I think I deleted that actually. Maybe not. I'm trying to. I played for Johnny Gomes' brother, and he had daily ones. His name's Joey Gomes. He was my college summer ball coach, and he would like just let them fly all the time. And there was some great ones in there. I think the best baseball one. I say this to myself a lot on the mound, and it came from Joey Gomes. He always talked about. He was like, um, he's like, whenever you're playing this game, and especially as a pitcher or a hitter, he was like, every at bat, somebody's career is going to get better, and he was always just like, whose is it going to be? And so I say that to myself on the mound a lot. Like if I need like a little pump me up, I'm like, all right, like my career, your career is getting better right here. Like you bet your ass it's not going to be yours. So baseball wise, I think that's mine. Like, it's either mine or yours. Let's do it.
I love that. Was your, I have one last one. I'm sorry about this, Brian. What was your college coach? Did he also coach Strasburg and Mark Capella? Did I see?
Yeah, Rusty Filter. He coached. I think he's the only Division I pitching coach to ever coach 2 first pick overalls.
Dang. Any
That are
sage
pitchers.
word?
Yeah, pitchers.
Anything stand out from him?
I mean, a lot of things. He's just a baseball guy through and through. Like, he called me halfway through the play, or when we beat the Dodgers this year in the playoffs, and he was like, he called me the next morning and he was fired up. I mean, he's a San Diego guy, coached at San Diego State for like 10 years, and he was just like, I knew you motherfuckers were gonna win this, like, just going off. He was like, I was watching all the interviews and your guys are dropping F bombs, and like, he's like, you got a bunch of dogs on the team, like, you guys were not gonna lose those games. And so he was just like, he was amazing. But yeah, he's just that, like, I mean, he's a dog. Like, everybody in baseball know that. Like, he's a baseball guy, and he was great to play for. He was one of my favorite coaches all time.
I love that. When I saw that, I knew I had to ask about that.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, Brian.
Love it, dudes. Willie, thank you for coming on here, man. This has been great. Thank you for giving us your time and your stories, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. That was awesome.